Is Sean O'Malley the real deal? Did Marc Goddard stop the fight prematurely? And was Aljamain Sterling badly exposed? Sugar Sean O'Malley is the real deal, fight fans. He did what he said he'd do. He knocked out Aljamain Sterling to win the UFC bantamweight title. The stoppage was picture perfect. Sterling zigged when he should have zagged, but O'Malley didn't miss the mark. But how did he set that shot up? O'Malley frustrated Sterling with his exceptional distance management, made him overextend, and then clocked him with a right hand followed by ground and pound to win the belt. It wasn't a lucky punch, it was beautifully set up, and much of the work was done in the first round. Since Sterling is a fast starter, O'Malley knew he had to stay patient, manage his distance, and circle off as soon as Sterling tried to close the gap for a takedown. O'Malley's movements are very unusual, especially his use of basketball fakes in MMA that left Sterling completely bamboozled on a couple of occasions. The champ failed to make reads on the challenger, so he couldn't land any significant offense. Even when he managed to get his hands on O'Malley, Sterling couldn't do much with it, since O'Malley surprised everyone with his elite takedown defense. His hip positioning and balance were on point. Now there's this thing about grapplers that when they fail to take elite strikers down, they start panic wrestling. Sterling experienced the same phenomena. He failed to execute his game plan technically, so he went for broke. The former champ came out swinging in the second round in an attempt to overwhelm O'Malley, but his move backfired. By round 2, O'Malley had measured range to perfection, and he stepped back just enough to avoid Sterling's left hand, and then landed his kill shot. Now, was it a premature stoppage? Sterling was badly hurt, but he was still moving, although he was realistically 1 or 2 big shots away from being sent to the Shadow Realm. The stoppage was a wee bit early, but it wasn't bad at all, especially when Sterling turned his back on O'Malley a split second before referee Marc Goddard called the fight. Sterling must be thankful that Goddard saved him from unnecessary damage. So, was Sterling exposed? Sterling's defeat to O'Malley has had many claiming that he was exposed. Because that's not how bantamweight goats are supposed to fall, right? But before we jump the gun on Sterling, we do have to keep a few things in mind. He last fought at UFC 288, and UFC 292 was a fairly quick turnaround. Sterling wanted more time to prepare, and he even had a back and forth with Dana White because he didn't want to fight at UFC 292. Even John Anik thinks he was almost bullied into accepting the fight. Nobody knows if that played a role in his loss, and if Sterling was 100% healthy. Sterling didn't make any excuses, so we're not going to make any either, but the former champ did look slower and sloppier than usual. Either he wasn't 100%, or O'Malley broke him mentally by being better than he expected. Underestimating people in prize fighting is never a good idea, especially when the stakes are high. Sterling admittedly underestimated O'Malley, and it was evident from the way they carried themselves pre-fight. The body language of the two fighters was completely different. O'Malley walked out with an ice-cold demeanor, razor-focused on the task at hand. Sterling was pretty chill in comparison, oozing with confidence as if he had the fight in the bag. When the cage door closed and O'Malley showed a glimpse of what he was capable of, Sterling's morale took a big hit and he simply couldn't recover. So to conclude, Sterling wasn't necessarily exposed. He simply happened to cross paths with a fighter who was levels ahead of him on the night. O'Malley was hungrier, so he ate and left no crumbs. As far as Sterling's concerned, he will surely be back. Winning a belt is one thing. Keeping a hold of it in the presence of scary contenders like Marlon Vera, Cory Sandhagen, and Merab Dvalishvili is another. So, who should O'Malley fight next? Dvalishvili deserves it the most, but fight fans wouldn't also mind a rematch between O'Malley and Marlon Vera, especially when they have unfinished business. O'Malley wants it, the fans want it, so make it happen, Dana.
The way he acts, he's so annoying, just like he's not funny, and he tries to be so ugly, he dresses like an idiot. It's like, God, do I really have to give this guy an opportunity? But I'm like, well, I'll probably just go out there and whoop his ass, make a lot of money.
O'Malley also wouldn't mind following in the footsteps of his idol, Conor McGregor, and taking on the best boxers in the world, like Gervonta Tank Davis.
I don't really follow boxing, but I've heard of Gervonta Davis, and I think he's undefeated. I'm about to pay. I want to have crazy, massive fights. That shit gets me excited. I love that stuff. And I I mean, there's no stars in the bantamweight division. Gervonta, you could consider him like almost a star, and that's what gets me excited. Me versus Gervonta would be massive. T-Mobile or here. Yeah, I also wouldn't mind knocking out Gervonta Davis, and I know people are gonna go, "Oh, you want to be Conor?" I'm telling you, that fight is gonna happen.
O'Malley's certainly good, but is he good enough to take on the best in boxing? Ryan Garcia doesn't think so. Quote, "Sugar Sean, you're good and all, but stop talking about this 'I'm gonna box' stuff. You'll just get knocked out." O'Malley didn't hold back in his response, poking fun at Garcia's KO loss to Tank Davis, saying, "Like you did or different?" Garcia responded by calling O'Malley out. Quote, "Boxing and MMA are two different sports. And if you need a reminder, let me know. I'll gladly do a tune-up for my return fight." Another fighter who's interested in locking horns with O'Malley is Zhang Weili.
Who would you like to fight next?
他刚问大拿说：“那你下场会打谁呢？”大拿说：“应该问你，你是冠军，你说了算。那你想打谁？”
打蜜糖吧。
Sean O Malley. How about this?
The strawweight champ got jokes, doesn't she? Unfortunately, Amanda Lemos didn't get to see the funny side of Zhang during their strawweight co-main event at UFC 292. The Brazilian was dominated, with Magnum outstriking her by a striking differential of more than 250 strokes, a record in women's UFC history. For Weili, the recipe for dominance is simple. The more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in combat, and the more contenders you get to add to your list of vanquished foes. Who will Zhang's next victim be? Well, ideally, it should either be Tatiana Suarez or Yan Jianan. Ian Gary was one of the biggest winners at UFC 292. He decimated Neil Magny to earn a comfortable decision victory. And now, at 13-0 as a professional fighter, he wants to lock horns with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson.
It's a dream matchup. Wonderboy is a very different striker. He's a very different tactician. What the problem is with Wonderboy is many people don't know how to solve the Rubik's Cube. He's a challenge. He's difficult. I believe I have all the keys and all the skill to go out there and find that victory, and prove that like speed, patience, and intelligence is what can go out there and get that win. And I would love to compete against Wonderboy. It would be amazing.
Who could deny him after a performance like that? Well, Wonderboy himself, according to Dana White.
Wonderboy turned the fight down tonight. We make fights, man. That's what we do.
With Wonderboy out of the equation, who should Gary fight next? Ideally, he should be rebooked against Jeff Neal. They were supposed to fight at UFC 292, but Neal pulled out. Mr. Hands of Steel is a tough test for Gary. He's a very polished striker with serious knockout power. Moreover, Neal is a lot higher than Machado in the welterweight rankings, so even if the Irishman jumps a few places up on Tuesday, he'd still be lower than Neal. And in that case, a fight between the two makes the most sense. Another bantamweight fight that caused a stir on social media post-UFC 292 was Mario Batista versus Damon Blackshear. Batista and Blackshear battled in a closely contested bout, with the American having a slight edge in total significant strikes landed, and more takedowns secured. Many fans think he won the first two rounds, but the judges had other ideas as Batista was awarded the win by a unanimous decision. MMA fans think Blackshear was robbed. Quote, "Blackshear robbed for sure. 29-28 either way is okay, I guess, but 30-27? Bro stepped up on a week's notice after scoring a twister submission, and that's how they do him? He'll be back." Another one said, and I quote, "Blackshear got robbed. He should have won that fight. The judge that called 30-27 should be fired for an absolutely horrible decision." Do you think Damon Blackshear was robbed? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. To stay up to date with the latest happenings in the world of mixed martial arts and boxing, please subscribe to Takedown MMA and turn on those notifications. Thank you for your continued love and support, and we'll see you in the next one.